many of you know where your food comes from? I'm not talking about the grocery stores, but like where your food really comes from, how it gets to the grocery stores. Okay, so a few of you. Well, today I'm going to talk to you about raising meat chickens. And we have done this for the past 4 years as a way to not only provide a food source for our family, but also to know exactly where our food comes from and what has gone into our food that we're going to consume. So to raise meat chickens, there are 3 steps that I'm going to talk about today. The first one is the equipment that you need. The second one is preparation for your chickens. And the third one, I'm going to give you some helpful tips from my experience. So let's begin talking about the equipment needed. So we're going to break this into 2 sections. There's equipment that you need for chicks and equipment needed for chickens. So first we're going to talk about the equipment needed for chicks. You need a pen to keep your chicks in. We use a stock tank. I've heard people using boxes. It kind of depends how many chickens you get. This size of a stock tank is good for about 25 chicks. If you go over that, you need to get something bigger. There are feeders. This is a good type of feeder because it's high above the ground, but gives them where they have to reach in and they won't spill a lot of food. There's waterers. This is a quart waterer. You could use like a big mason jar and screw that into it, and they could get water out of that. You fill this part up and the water comes down into the red trough in the bottom. And then the other important thing for chicks is a heat lamp. They need heat for the first several weeks. Normally a mother would give that to them, but since they don't have a mother, they need a heat source. Again, 1 lamp is good for 25 chicks. If you have more than that, you need to get an additional lamp, or they'll smother each other trying to all get under the heat source. So now let's talk about the equipment for chickens. Again, you need feed and waterer. These are some different types of feeders and waterers. These 2 are feeders. I would suggest you get a feeder with a top on it, because the chickens will roost on the top of a feeder like this, and they'll poop inside of it, and it gets really gross. So a feeder with a top. You also see that they have hangers, so that you can hang them from the ceiling of a building, and that prevents them from roosting here, and also it gets the feeder up off the ground. The same thing on the waterers. This one has a hanger, this one doesn't. This is a top fill, so you would take that black top off and fill it from the top. This one you have to take this whole bottom part off, or the top part off, turn it upside down, and fill it. So this one's a little bit easier for filling. The other thing you need for chickens is, again, a pen. You need a bigger pen than a stock tank, because of course they grow from the time they're chickens. This is called a chicken tractor. You would put this out in your yard. You can see here it has wheels on it. And so every day or 2, you push it through the grass to give them a new food source and to get them out of their poop and gross stuff that they have created. So this is a do-it-yourself model. Just have PVC pipe and 2x4s and some chicken wire. So now that you know the equipment needed to make your job of raising chickens a little easier, let's talk about preparation. And the first thing to prepare is to order your chickens. I think I lost a card somewhere. There we go. So there's 3 things to consider when ordering chickens: the hardiness of the breed, the rate of gain, so how fast they're going to gain weight, and then also the intended purpose of the breed. There are 2 different types of chickens. There are egg layers and there are meat chickens. So if you're really only raising a chicken for meat purposes, you want to get a meat chicken, not necessarily an egg layer. We've butchered egg layers. They're a lot thinner. The meat is mostly dark. There's not the good white meat. A good meat chicken is a Cornish cross. The good things about them is that in 8 weeks, they're ready to go to butcher. Sometimes you can do them at 6 weeks, and they have an average pound at that 8 weeks of 6.5 pounds. You can't hardly find a 6.5 pound chicken at the grocery store. The bad thing about Cornish cross is they grow so big they can have health problems, including heart trouble, and their legs can give out underneath them because they're so big. Another type of meat chicken is a red broiler. The red broilers will lay eggs if you let them continue to grow, where the Cornish cross won't. You can see the red broilers are ready in 9 to 10 weeks, and they're about a pound lighter on average. The good thing about the red broilers is they don't have the health issues of the Cornish cross. So once you've ordered your chickens, it's time to start getting your pen ready. So this is a typical chick pen. You can see it's the stock tank. They have the heat lamp and the feed and the water. An additional thing is some sort of bedding. You can use pine shavings or you can use straw. Then you need to consider your chicken feed. So there are 2 different types of feeds that you want to use when feeding chickens. The first is called a starter feed. You'll use that in the first 2 to 4 weeks. It contains an antibiotic in it to help the young chickens continue to grow healthy. And it also has a feeder chicken, a meat chicken, requires more protein. And so the feed for meat chickens has a higher protein level than your egg layer feed. Oops. And then there's a finisher feed that you would do after the first 2 to 4 weeks. And it has a higher protein level, and it doesn't include the antibiotics. You want to take the antibiotics away from the chickens at least 2 weeks before you butcher them so that it has time to get out of their system. The last step of preparation is that you want to call the butcher and make an appointment. Some people butcher their own. I don't do well with that kind of stuff, so we take ours to the butcher. It is important to do this before you get your chickens because the butcher usually is 4 to 6 weeks out as far as planning for getting your chickens into butcher. So we've talked about the right equipment, we've talked about preparation, and now I'm going to give you some helpful hints. My first helpful hint is all about grass. We turn our chicks out at about 3 weeks onto grass. It helps supplement their feed, so we don't have to put as much feed into them, and it also gives them a cleaner environment. Because if you can imagine 25 chicks in a little stock tank, you're having to change their bedding every several days. So this prevents you from having to change it. You just push that tractor out, or you can let them free range, where you just let them out and then they'll come back in at night. Another thing that I've learned is water. We usually do our chicks in the spring and summer because you don't have to worry about your water freezing. But the bad thing is that during the summer they go through a lot of water. And so we use big 5-gallon water containers, and you have to fill that every day. You don't want your chickens to get out of water. The same thing on feed. You want to go to a bigger feeder as your chickens grow. And then a couple tips to beat the heat. As I said, we raise chickens a lot during the summer, and chickens get hot just like us. And I'm not sure if any of you have ever seen a chicken pant, but they will open their mouth like a dog and pant when they get hot. So there's several things. We put a tarp over our chicken tractor to provide them some shade. And we'll also put a sprinkler out so that they can get wet, and it helps cool down their body temperature. So in conclusion, with the proper equipment and preparation, along with some helpful hints that I've provided you today, you can raise plump chickens for your freezer. The meat is juicy and tender, and you know exactly what they were fed and where they came from. I want to leave you with a quote from Michael Pollan, who wrote Omnivore's Dilemma. If we could see what lies on the far side of the increasingly high walls of our industrial agriculture, we would surely change the way we eat. I believe raising meat chickens is one way you can do this.